welcome to Land is at the Center. I'm grateful that you decided to join me today. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of Black people being enslaved in this country. We're going to talk about African agricultural practices and foodways. And we're also going to briefly touch on how land connects to all aspects of life, including food, water, climate change, ecosystems, and health. So first, I want to start by explaining why it's important to begin this teach out or this session with some social, historical, and ecological context. A lot of times in public health and epidemiology specifically, we focus on questions around how much, how many, who, and what. What we focus less on are questions around how and why. What do I mean by that? So a lot of our questions are around things that are directly measurable, directly quantifiable, risk factors, and disease distribution. But we don't often cover how conditions arose in the first place or how people ended up in certain situations in the first place. How did this particular disease become rampant in Black communities? And we also don't always or often focus on the assets that communities have, right? A lot of times our work focuses on the deficit model. What are the harms? What are the toxicants? What are the things that are bad for people's health? As opposed to what are the things that are improving people's health? What are the things that people know that positively impact their well-being and their wellness? So this is why I think it's important to start with some context related to socio-political and historical factors. I want folks to have a full picture of some of these systems that we're talking about, some of the history that has led to the current condition of Black people in this country. And I really hope that this just will paint a picture to get you encouraged to do some more research for yourself. Afro-Indigenous people have kept and perfected agricultural knowledge and techniques for thousands of years. However, Europeans kidnapped Africans from their continent and enslaved them in a foreign land or foreign lands in order to capitalize off of African agricultural knowledge and wisdom. The atrocities committed that include the genocide of people indigenous to the Americas and the brutal enslavement of people indigenous to Africa were done so on this land and for the theft of this land. One of my favorite authors, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, wrote a book called Something Torn and New. In this book, he talks about the dismembering of the African continent and peoples. I especially like this quote. The requirements of the slave plantation demanded the physical removal of human resources from the continent to work on land stolen from other peoples, mainly Native Caribbeans and Native Americans. The result was an additional dismemberment of the diasporic African, who was now not only separated from his continent and his labor, but also from his very sovereign being. Dismembering serves a unique purpose. It seeks to separate people from their spiritual practices, from their foodways, from their relatives, both human and non-human. The goal of dismembering is humiliation, and it is also to prevent remembering. When we forget who we are, where we come from, our ways of knowing and loving and living, then it is so much easier to control us and control what we eat. It is then easier to dictate what food, harmful and non-harmful, gets put into our bodies. This is why at the land-based John's Garden in Philadelphia, we stress this principle of Sankofa. I'll touch more on that later. European settlers attempted to dismember Africans from their cultures, rituals, from their spiritual practices, languages, and foodways, while simultaneously extracting their ancestral farming knowledge. Unbeknownst to them, abducted African women often braided seeds of home into their hair, carrying with them their stories and their power across oceans. Though in many ways, the goal of dismemberment was dehumanization and disconnection, Africans were able to preserve and maintain their ways of relating to each other and to Earth. Despite the pain and trauma that occurred on the land, she has always been and continues to become the bringer of healing for Black people. That deep connection to land could never be lost entirely because it is embodied in Black people. I believe land and food justice necessitate collective agency, resistance, and community power. It is not possible to achieve food and land justice under our current political and economic systems. Therefore, food and land justice will require us to dismantle capitalism, imperialism, white supremacy, and patriarchy in totality so that we can have true liberation and self-determination, not only in our lives, but also in our food and in the ways that we relate to Mama Earth. At the land-based John's Garden in Philadelphia, we practice Sankofa. Sankofa is a word and principle from the Akan people of present-day Ghana. It means, "Is nothing wrong with going back to get what you left." So what we do is stress the importance of knowing and understanding your past so that it shapes our present and also informs how we move forward. We stress the healing power of spiritual practice, and we also practice natural agriculture techniques. When I say spiritual practice, I mean we literally pray over every seed that is planted in the garden. We pray before and sing music, gospel music, as we harvest. We talk to the plants and are in relationship with the plants as we harvest and weed. We let them know exactly what we are doing and why. This includes asking for forgiveness of the plants, of the soil, and of all the microorganisms in the soil. We believe and honor all the relationships happening beneath and above the soil and try to facilitate a healthy ecosystem by allowing all of the elements and the organisms to do their thing without unnecessary and harmful human interference. Each time we enter a garden or a farm space, we must show reverence of the earth. We must show respect and love and gratitude for all of the life that is being cultivated in these spaces. So while there is no single denomination that is practiced at land-based Johns, we are an African diaspora-centered organization. So we always give thanks and praise to the Creator and also call upon our ancestors for blessing and guidance as we do this work. Most of the crops that we grow at land-based Johns are crops from the African diaspora, and many are even native to the continent. This is our effort at remembering African Americans, Afro-Caribbeans, and West Africans to food that has cultural and spiritual significance for them. We are growing okra, hibiscus, Caribbean peppers, Trinidad scorpion pepper, Tobago seasoning pepper, white garden egg, and many, many others. Each of these foods has incredible medicinal and health benefits. My ancestors knew that. But somehow for many of us, Western science has clouded things a bit, and at times encouraged us to forget what our ancestors knew by rejecting their traditional ways of knowing. I believe in the power of food to heal our literal bodies and the power of food and farming to connect us to each other, to the Creator, to our ancestors, and to the land through ritual, care, prayer, and spirit. Land connects to all aspects of our lives. It connects to food, water, climate change, ecosystems, and health. This is why we think of land as being in the center of life, in the center of um, this earth, right? Land, when we say land, it doesn't only refer to the physical land. When I say land, I'm referring to all aspects of Mama Earth. So that includes the water, it includes the different animals, it includes the organisms and microorganisms, it includes rocks and the sea and the sun and the moon. It includes all of the things that make life on this planet possible. So, what do I offer as a solution? As a solution to the problem of dismembering, of individualism, of trying to silo these different aspects of our food system, these different aspects of life, I offer that we practice Sankofa. Each of us needs to start learning and understanding who we are and who our ancestors were, for better or for worse, so that we can discover and realize our role in healing our communities and also our roles in our collective fight for liberation, justice, and peace. As an action item, I encourage all of us to research and learn about our cultural and ancestral foods. Look up the health benefits of those foods. Connect with folks in your community who are interested in learning and growing and cooking together, and just start growing some stuff. I want to highlight that we are in inspiring yet painful and challenging times. No one knows what the availability of food is going to look like in a couple of months or a couple of years. So I want to encourage each of us to not only start growing some food, but also deepen your relationship with the food that you eat and the plants that you are growing. Spend time with them, learning their ways, learning their languages, and learning how they inform all aspects of life. I also want to encourage us to continue to do research on our own histories, on the histories of Black people in this country, on the histories of Indigenous Americans in this country, and allow that to shape what action items you get involved in moving forward. So to recap, today we covered the importance of beginning our stories, our research, and our narratives with social, historical, and ecological contexts. We talked briefly about the history of enslavement of Black people and why Black people were forced to labor here. We talked a little bit about African ancestral agricultural practices, ways of being, and foodways. And we also touched on how land is related to all aspects of life. In conclusion, I hope that you learned a little bit more about the history of enslavement of Black people in this country, about how land is connected to so many different aspects of life, and why it is truly at the center of agricultural work, but also at the center of community building work, community healing work, and collective liberation work. Thank you.